Here is my proposal for St. Benedict Parish Church down below. I've given a lot of thought and time to this. It's formally our Abbey Church, the first Abbey Church, and I came up with this idea, Mother Church of the Benedictine Mission from Northeast Kansas. Oh, there's a new title for us. I just invented it. There it is. The first Benedictine monk to come to Kansas was Father Henry Lemke, who first settled in Donovan, Kansas in 1856. In 1857, correct me if I've got my history wrong, Brother Casimir Seitz, pictured, and Father Augustine Worth, not pictured, arrived. Upon their arrival, Brother Casimir was ordained by Bishop Jean-Baptiste Miege of the Society of Jesus. He was the first man to be ordained in the Kansas Territory. On April 27, 1857, Father Augustine, the first prior, and Father Casimir met with Henry Lemke in Donovan. That's the day we count as the beginning of our abbey, and we celebrate our anniversary on that date. Within the year, the two of them moved to Atchison and settled at the corner of 2nd and now Union Street. Their first priory has since been torn down. It was located between St. Benedict's Parish Church and Fink Hall. If you look at the church, there's part of the wall does not have windows. That's where the priory attached, I understand. The foundations of their first church on the site may still lie under the floor of St. Benedict Parish Church, which was built around and over it. So I hope the foundations are still there. On the same corner of 2nd and now Unity Streets, where the grade school now stands, this was the first Mount St. Scholastica Monastery, home to the first Benedictine sisters who arrived in Atchison in 1863. And I think we greeted them swinging lanterns to protect the sisters from ruffians of Kansas, I guess. This corner of 2nd and now Unity Street became the center of the Benedictine mission from northeast Kansas. This is the source from which all else flowed. The college, the parish. The current baptismal font in the parish church is beautiful and natural. The massive shell suggests the waters of the sea. The font stands without a dedicated baptistry. Rather, it occupies one wing of the transept. I suggest we create a baptismal font capable of expressing the source of our Benedictine mission flowing from northeast Kansas, the basis in baptism of all our ministry, the common well of both Benedictine communities of Atchison. I suggest we create a dedicated baptistry for a font. First, an interlude. In front of the parish church of St. Benedict, there is a mountain of steps. They are uneven, oddly sized, confusing. When the snow falls, the entire expanse must be cleared, or else the snow will melt and freeze, and the icy steps become a major hazard. While there is a ramp entrance around the back, there is no ramp access to the front of the church for such rites as receiving a casket. The parish would benefit from a better, all-round, all-weather, and accessible approach to the entrance of the church. I'd like to begin to present a proposal for a baptistry by looking to Sant'Anselmo. This is where I live there. You'll see that the facade of the church in Rome is similar to the facade of our parish church in Atchison. The main difference is that there is a courtyard attached to the front of the church in Rome. We begin with the entry arch, with its lovely gabled roof that mirrors the gable of the church. Standing inside the entryway, you can see the open-air courtyard and facade of the church opposite. The courtyard roofing attaches to the facade. That roof just attaches to the facade of the church. The outer walls can be pierced with windows to benefit from the view. If you look just right from over there, you can see the dome of St. Peter's. 2 miles away. We could add here in Atchison a courtyard to the facade of the parish church. That's my suggestion. Add a courtyard. We could establish a new entrance based on the design of the entrance at Sant'Anselmo. It would have monumental doors, a gabled roof, a large medal of St. Benedict. It's pictured here with the wrong color of brickwork. The entrance it would be used in fair weather when the steps would be safe. The door and steps would provide a place for wedding photos. During inclement weather, the door could be closed and would serve only as a fire escape. Here is another image of the facade. Here's another attempt at rendering the baptistry attached to the front of the church. I didn't put all the roofing because it's just an awful lot to do and figure it all out on my computer. Note the street-level entry on the side, which perhaps would better... and note also the monumental front entrance, but I like a gabled peak for the front entrance to match the gable of the church. In the far right edge of this image, note a third ground-level entry. This entry leads to a ramp which runs along the side, the outer wall of the baptistry. It arrives at the floor level of the baptistry just in front of the facade. Caskets could be carried up this ramp. Such a ramp would have to be long and may effectively block off the pedestrian entrance onto campus and the playing fields beyond. This red line begins at the left in the center of Unity Street. It extends directly east. This is a natural entrance onto campus, which could be marked by a triumphal arch. The Arch of Constantine in Rome is the model for triumphal arches, but here perhaps it's a bit grandiose. Farrell Hall, the administration building, gives another version of a triumphal arch. We could use the entryway to that hall as a model. And look, the entry onto the campus and down to the playing fields. The bands could process through here, marching bands, and you could just have fun. Or a single or triple arch could be designed to match the church. There's lots of ways. Thus far, we have looked at entrances to the baptistry. Now let's turn to the interior. I'm inspired by the simple beauty of both the Lateran baptistry and the baptistry in the church of Aix-en-Provence, pictured here. We could do the same, but with 8 wooden columns, which match the columns of the ciborium, arching over the altar. Here's a suggestion. And from another perspective. I'm inspired by the 8-sided baptismal font in the Church of St. Lawrence, especially because a raised font for immersion is safer than a sunken font. I really prefer a sunken font, but like they have at the Lateran in Rome. You could have a sunken font with the balustrade all the way around, a safety wall, like this. So you could still have this with a sunken font. You'd need an entry gate like they have in Rome. But whether it's sunken or not, safety and an immersion font. We could add a raised font. They could put that seashell on the edge if they wanted and pipe water through it, and you can bless yourself with baptismal water from the seashell if you want. Or they could still baptize infants in the seashell, or get some other kind of laver. I think I would prefer not to repeat the octagon in the font, but rather designed a round immersion font, just to have the narration from circle to octagon. It could be a raised font like at St. Lawrence, or sunken with a high wall for safety. An immersion font is important, even if some baptisms are done from a raised laver, because the vertical movement into the water, down into the waters, and up from the waters is an important ritual which finds its echo in monastic profession. You watch the profession, we're going to come up. Whose profession is next? And when you profess vows, and the suscipe, and they're standing and kneeling and standing and kneeling and prostrating, all of that is an echo of baptism. And if your baptism, exactly as you suggest, if your baptism is valid and true and real and sort of minimal ritual, minimal water, then when we come to monastic profession, we don't see naturally the echo. But when your baptism can be by immersion, and you go down and up, and you're under the dome and the vertical axis and the dove above, and you're going up, down and up and down and up. Then when you get to monastic profession, you don't have to think twice to say this is an echo of baptism. This is how I am going to live my life as a baptized Christian, as a monk. It makes it easy. If the homilist has to explain what we should have done, you'll never get to the teaching. If you do it well, then you just have to point it out. I would put a low lantern or dome over the font to let the light through the center of the baptistry itself. Of course, I'd place an image of the Holy Spirit hovering over the waters below. An aerial view indicates the minimum size of this baptistry. Of course, I'm not an architect or planner or city council member. All kinds of other people have to be involved in such decisions, especially the pastor. But as a liturgist, it's my job to give a vision. The baptismal font is located in the center, the blue pool, on axis with the church entrance. The round pool is surrounded by 8 wooden columns supporting a lantern or a low dome. To the right of the baptistry, running alongside the outer wall of the church, is a ramp which gradually leads to the level of the baptistry. You see, I made that ramp really long. I don't know how long it has to be to work, and maybe you have to change the elevation of the ground to make it work. The light green line begins at the bottom of the image, where a person or casket enters into the ramp. The ramp begins to rise until it goes level at the triumphal arch. There's that triumphal arch with the yellow line. And then after the arch begins to rise again until it arrives at the floor level of the baptistry. And then you go into the baptistry. A ramp may need to extend pretty far south, and so is pierced by a triumphal arch, which gives access to the campus. There we are. Here's a simple line view of the ritual. The round blue in the center is the baptismal font, which is surrounded by 8 wooden columns supporting a low dome or lantern. The green line is the movement from the parking area into the ramp through the triumphal arch and into the baptistry. The yellow line indicates the alignment with Unity Street, with the Triumphal Arch. Such a design would provide a monumental baptistry capable of expressing the center of Benedictine mission from northeastern Kansas. This is the source from which all our ministry flows, both for the Abbey and, initially, for the Mount. It would provide an internal stairwell, protected from the elements. It's that lower door on the angle. It has I didn't talk about this earlier, so I'll just talk about it right now. The problem is getting up the steps in inclement weather. This low door on street level would enter into an internal stairwell that you'd walk up inside the building, free from any difficulty, from inclement weather and from ice and all that. That's my thought. There's a playful triumphal arch. There's a ramp entrance. Baptismal water. The parish, the Abbey Church is not a parish, so a baptismal font is not appropriate for the Abbey Church. However, we use baptismal water regularly from holy water stoups. What is holy water other than fundamentally a reminder of our baptism? When we greet a casket at the entrance of the church, we sprinkle it with baptismal water. I recommend developing a permanent place for baptismal waters, not a font, in the Abbey Church, so that we may sprinkle the casket from these waters. At the Easter Vigil, we can renew our baptismal vows, standing around these baptismal waters, which are then sprinkled on those present. Baptismal water could be located either in the foyer, the circle furthest to the left, at a place where people turn to process toward the rising sun, toward Christ who comes. Or the baptismal water could be placed just inside the church, the middle circle, along the path toward the altar. Or the baptismal waters could be placed in the center aisle on axis with the first set of windows to indicate illumination and to stand more in the midst of the community. Then we could easily gather round it to renew our baptismal vows at the vigil in the midst of the assembly. It becomes less available if you walk up the side aisles, but this in Stanbrook Abbey has this baptismal water, a crystal blue bowl set on a plinth located at the intersection between the processional way of the sisters and that of the guests. From here, all process toward the rising sun, toward the altar, toward Christ, the one coming.